Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and this is our introduction to daylight astrology. In this video, we're going to talk about the sexual magic color theory by Paschal, Beverly, Randolph. So this is information that I calculated myself. I've never publicly released this information. I've talked about it. I've used it. I've, done a lot of research with it, but I haven't released it. And so this is just one method for calculating personal color palettes as described in the book Sexual Magic by Paschal Beverly Randolph. This book has been demonized to the hills. He wrote it in personally, he wrote it himself in probably about 6 different languages, and when you translate those to English, it is written in such a way as a person who is an English speaker writing it in another language. So I've talked about this a little bit, but I'm not going to go there. I just want to talk about how this thing is calculated. All right, so this is a chart, a repurposed chart from his book along with some other information. So this is the planets and the value associations. So he has the order of the planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Okay, and if you count from the Sun and go backwards, that's how he put these planets in order. However, he put the moon at the highest value, which is 9. So really, you could start from the moon, put the moon over the sun, but I can see why he wouldn't want to do that, because it was too shocking probably at the time. But if you're going clockwise, it is Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. That's the actual order of the planets. And so again, clockwise, not counterclockwise, like most astrologers do. So these values vary from 9 all the way down to 3. The reason why there's no 1 or 2, in my opinion, is because 1 and 2 are both affiliated with the north node and the south node, which comes back to the moon. The north node is the north node of the moon. The south node is the south node of the moon. And that has to do with our tree of life calculation, which I am going to make a video about that, but it's not in this, overview series. Okay. So in this chart, we talk about, you see the planets and then the constellations and what planet each constellation is ruled by, but there's rulers, exaltations, detriments, and falls, and they're all affiliated with a number. So let's look at the sun. The number is 6. Okay, that's the number associated with the sun, 6. The ruler is Leo. Okay, but it's exalted in Aries. Why? Because Aries is also a fire sign. Its detriment is Aquarius because it's an inconjunct point, and its fall is in Libra. It has to do with where Leo is and how it's related to Libra. That's how all of these are, okay? Those things are not in question because they're based on the degrees and the mathematical theories and all of that. So we're not putting that into question. We're going to use it as is unless there's some reason to change it. But I just wanted to point out this is why this chart looks like this. So in order to do the calculations, you have to have an understanding of how this particular chart works. So we also use the degree theory. Now, the degree theory is basically each planet is affiliated with a certain degree from 1 to 29. Now, they round 0 up to 1, so that's one thing. But they don't round any of the other ones up. I just use it like this. I didn't get into the whole thing because if it was me, I would put, but you see how it would technically be, there is no 30 degrees. There's only a 0. And 0, you have to round up to 1. So, Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'll just leave this as this. So this is just so you can have a understanding of how I do this theory. I use the degree theory as it's been presented. Okay, I didn't make no calculation changes. Okay, so this is the day we're going to calculate for, and we're just going to use the basic standard planets I already mentioned and the basic degrees. So here we have the sun at 27 degrees. I don't use the smaller ones. I don't round up. I'm not going to do any of that. That's unnecessary for a basic understanding. Because with their telescopes, they would not have been able to see seconds. Okay, I don't care what people say. They wouldn't have bothered. They wouldn't have been able to see it. It wouldn't have been like that. Okay, so we're just going to do basic degrees. So the sun was at 27 degrees of Taurus. The moon is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. Mercury is at 14 degrees of Taurus. Venus is at 12 degrees of Aries. Mars is at 14 degrees of Leo. Jupiter is at 25 degrees of Gemini, and Saturn's at 29 degrees of Pisces. Now, when I do this for people, which I do as a service, when I do this for people for birth charts or days or whatever, I use my tree of life as the formula. So I use more calculations than what we're going to use in this example. I use more points. I use different techniques, but I wanted to give the information as closely related to what he gives in the book so people can have a basic understanding. This is by far is not the only way to do this. This is just the way that I'm showing you. I don't even do it like this. I'm way more complicated, okay? My way takes forever. Like, it's very complicated, but I use a lot more data points. But you can do it with these few data points and you'll still get fantastic answers, okay, on what this stuff is. So here's our practice calculation now. As you can see here, I made a chart. Now, May 18th is our spiritual new year. And you'll see at the end why that is. I didn't even know this when I never did this calculation for this day before I made this chart. Okay, I just said, okay, I gotta pick a day. I already have a chart. I already have it open. Let me just do this day. I didn't know what this day was. I've been calculating charts for this day for 2 years now, and I had no idea what this day was. I just said, all right, well, I guess this is our spiritual new year. That's kind of what I thought. And after I did the calculation, I'm sure. So as you can see, I put in the fixed value, so we didn't have to look anywhere for that. I put in the degrees. And I put in the placement. So 27 of Taurus, 2 of Aquarius, 14 of Taurus, 12 of Aries, 14 of Leo, 25 of Gemini, 29 of Pisces. It's all on this chart, okay? All right. So now we're going to calculate the value. All right. So 27 degrees. Hold on. Let me open up my page. .27 degrees is Gemini. So the sun, back to our chart over here, the sun as it relates to Gemini is 0, okay, because it's not on this chart at all. So this is how I do this. It'll go back and forth, okay. The moon as it relates to 2 degrees, which is Taurus, I can tell over here, it's in its exaltation. 14 degrees as it relates to Mercury. 14 is Taurus, so it's Mercury and Taurus, that's 0. Venus as it relates to 12 degrees. 12 degrees is Pisces, so that's in its exaltation, that's +1. And the last 3 are 0. Mars as it relates to 14. 14 is Taurus, so it's 0. Jupiter as it relates to 25. 25 is Aries, that's 0. Saturn as it relates to 29. 29 is Leo, that's 0. Okay, so that's how we got the values on this chart. As you can see, as of right now, we only have 1 + 1 and another one that's +1. Okay, now we're going to look at the sun as it relates to Taurus, because 27 degrees is Gemini, but Taurus is different. So the sun as it relates to Taurus is 0. The moon as it relates to Aquarius is 0, meaning it's not on that chart. If it's not on that chart, it doesn't count. Okay, Mercury as it relates to Taurus is 0. Venus as it relates to Aries is in its detriment, so that's -1. Mars as it relates to 0, Leo is 0. Jupiter as it relates to Gemini is also in its detriment, that's also -1. Saturn as it relates to Pisces is 0 because it's not on that chart. Okay, so anything if it's not on that chart as specifically being in its ruler, exaltation, detriment, or fall, gets a 0. Now we got to do some math. So Venus has a +1 and a -1. That's 0. Okay, because you got to be able to multiply this. 0 times -1 is also 0 for Jupiter. So the only one that has a positive number on this chart is the moon at +1, and you can see that as it's here. That's it. The moon is the only one that has +1. Now, how do we get our final color number? Okay, you have to multiply the total, whatever your total is, by the fixed value. Don't forget to go back to the fixed value, because that's how you know what proportion it is. So people who say like, oh, my color is black, and this, your color's not black. Black is 3. And you know how hard it is to have Saturn placements? Saturn placements is literally, what is that? You would have to, let's just say it's very rare for somebody's color to be black. I've calculated a lot of colors for people, very rare, and I have had no blacks actually, none at all. The most common color I get is green actually. So as you can see though on this chart, the moon is the only one that's +1. So you have to go back and multiply the +1 times the moon number, which is 9, and you get a color which is 9 white. Now, because the sun is yellow, Mercury is mixed colors, we didn't have to deal with any of that. It's all in his book how to do that part. So if you want to, get some more information, some more details, this is just to fill in the blanks on how I think he actually did the calculations. Not to show you all the stuff, but just to give you an overview. So Venus is green, Mars is red, Jupiter is blue, Saturn is black. Okay, the only color that's affiliated with this day is white, and it's 9 white. I was flabbergasted because I've calculated about 50 colors so far. I have never gotten one color. Never. I've never gotten one color. Never. So again, I think that May 18th is our spiritual new year. I've basically convinced myself with this calculation because I've never seen anything like this where it's literally just one color, and 9 is such a final, 9 is a really important number. So and the fact that it's 9 white, like that's shocking to me, unbelievable. So you'll be able to, screenshot these, try and go back and do the calculation for yourself. Make sure you understand. Perhaps I'll teach a class on this or something if it becomes a value, but I do these calculations for people. If people are interested, they can go to my website or send me an email, and I'll tell you how much this costs. This could be helpful if you're trying to figure out. Now, remember, the book Sexual Magic is all about trying to put the person in, you, yourself, and also your partner in the proper energy so that it will be more likely that you conceive during or you conceive a physical child, or you can birth a spiritual child during intercourse. That's the point of this. And so if you're trying to use this information for hurting or harming people, there will be a curse on you for that. We don't do that kind of stuff with this. This is to help build our people back up and to get our people. That's why I didn't want to release it at all, but I felt like it was important to at least give people an idea of how this works. And it does work every time. Like I said, the most color that I've calculated usually ends up being green. Venus is very, very important and prevalent on this planet, and we don't really talk about that enough. But this is just a way that you can actually take this information and break it down into something that is usable, that you can use to help people. So shalom, peace and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.